Sinbad and the Valley of Diamonds. The Sailor's Tale. In the heart of Baghdad, in a palace adorned with silk and spice, the legendary sailor Sinbad gathered his friends once more. He raised his goblet and smiled. "My friends, tonight, I shall tell you of a journey unlike any I had taken before. A voyage that led me to a place where diamonds fall like rain, but death lurks in the shadows." Chapter 1, The Living Island. Sinbad, ever restless, joined a crew of merchants on a new voyage across the great seas. The wind was kind, and the journey smooth. They traded in spices, rare woods, and silks. Days passed in peace. One morning, they arrived at a beautiful green island. Trees stood tall with fresh fruits, and a sweet wind drifted through the air. They landed and began to cook meals, laughing and resting. But something was wrong. Sinbad noticed the ground beneath him tremble slightly, and then again. Birds flew away in panic. The sea began to churn. Suddenly, the entire island started to rise. It wasn't land at all, it was the back of a sleeping whale. With a great roar, the creature flipped into the water. The sailors were tossed into the waves. Sinbad clung to a piece of wood, drifting alone for hours. At last, exhausted and shivering, he washed ashore on a strange rocky island. Chapter 2, The Giant Rock. Sinbad awoke to silence and fog. The island had no trees, no food, only stone and sand. Then he saw it. A massive white egg, taller than a house. A shadow fell over him. Sinbad looked up. A bird. No, a monster. The legendary roc, a bird so large its wings darkened the sky, landed upon the egg. Sinbad had heard tales of this creature from old sailors. And an idea sparked in his mind. If I tie myself to its leg, perhaps it will carry me somewhere far from this cursed island. He tore his turban and ropes, tied himself securely to the bird's leg, and waited. The next morning, the roc spread its wings, screeched, and rose into the air. Sinbad felt the wind cut his face as the ground disappeared beneath him. Chapter 3, The Diamond Valley. The roc flew for hours. Mountains passed like ant hills below. Then it descended into a dark ravine, a deep valley surrounded by cliffs so steep they touched the sky. The roc dropped Sinbad near its nest and flew off. Sinbad stood up, bruised, but alive. And then, he gasped. The ground glittered with thousands of diamonds. But nearby, skeletons lay crushed. Long bones picked clean. Something else lived here. As the sun set, he heard hissing, deep, thunderous hissing. From cracks in the rocks, enormous serpents began to emerge, thicker than tree trunks, eyes glowing yellow. Sinbad scrambled onto a rock and watched in horror. He knew the legends now were true, this was the Valley of Diamonds, and no man returned from it. Chapter 4, The Clever Escape. Sinbad remembered a story told by an old merchant in Basra. Traders would throw chunks of raw meat into the valley. Diamonds would stick to the flesh. Then, giant birds like the roc would swoop down, grab the meat, and fly it back to their nests. There, the traders would scare off the birds and collect the diamonds stuck to the meat. Sinbad's eyes lit with hope. Nearby, he found the carcass of a dead sheep, left by those very merchants. He stuffed the belly of the sheep with as many diamonds as he could carry, then tied himself inside. The smell was awful. But it worked. Soon, the rock returned. With its powerful talons, it carried Sinbad, disguised in meat, up into the sky. He was free. Chapter 5, Return to Baghdad. The rock dropped the carcass on a mountain cliff near a camp of traders. One merchant approached, hoping to find diamonds, only to find Sinbad emerging from the meat. The man screamed, "A jinn!" But Sinbad laughed and said, "Not a jinn. Just a sailor with more luck than sense." He shared some diamonds with the merchants in thanks, and they helped him find passage back across the seas. After months of sailing, he returned at last to Baghdad. He walked through the city unnoticed, his robes torn, his hair long. But in his satchel were stones that shimmered like stars. He entered his grand home. Servants rushed to greet him. And that night, as his friends gathered around, Sinbad poured glittering diamonds onto the table and said, "Gold is found in the markets. But this is bought only with danger, fear, and the hand of fate." Epilogue. Sinbad ended his story, sipped his wine, and leaned back on his cushion. The sea is a harsh teacher, but I have never learned more than I did in that valley. The snakes, the rock, the diamonds. Every bit of it was real. His guests sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, they began to applaud. Sinbad smiled. "But the sea still calls me, my friends. And I think I will answer it one more time." The end.